What is a kind of one thing or a couple things that brands can do to help optimize the data? Because it's coming from kind of a variety of sources: structured, unstructured, social, zero, first, third, just all over the place now. Optimization is very important. So what can brands do to help optimize that data structure to enhance those relevant interactions?
Yeah, I think it'd be so simple if I say, just go out and get the data and then make sure you use it. But no, really the answer is it's about this framework, establishing a framework, a process, having the right technology to collect that valuable first party data and that freely offered the zero party data, because that's giving you the context around that individual and that audience that you have. So having that solid foundation to have 360-degree view of your customer. But the challenge can be, you have your CRM, your DMP, but customers and consumers can be really more discerning about where and when they're willing to give the data. So that onus again is on the brands to make sure that they're communicating why, the value. So we really say you have to have a strong value proposition. Make sure that one, you're enticing consumers, making it easy for them to share the data, and two, you're being very transparent as to how you're going to use that data. If you have both those things in place, it's going to make it easier for you to deliver those better, more personalized and more engaging experiences.
Yeah, I think the optimization is key, and I'm glad that you are talking about that, and we're talking about that today. I'm glad that brands are thinking about that, because first and foremost, again, I think is that exercise to kind of parse through and understand the data that's valuable and actionable versus the data that is not. If it is valuable and actionable, I think brands can work to optimize it, to gather a deeper and richer understanding of what the data is saying. And a lot of the optimization is looking at the data and understanding not just what is happening, but why. And then using that understanding of the what and the why ultimately to drive forward a more a stronger point of effective use of that data and effective ability to ultimately differentiate, create that more personalized and tailored experience, message, interaction, relationship with the consumer.
I think it's really important, especially for the customer experience, to maximize the data you have. If you have a customer file and you have the transaction file, there's a lot that marketers can do with that. And so we have to make it easy for the customers when we're asking for data. So make sure that user experience online and in retail is really easy. If we start to ask too many questions, we're going to see those walls put up. So I think the best thing is to make sure you look at that customer experience, and really sometimes less is more. So what can we do with the information we're provided? And then really just make sure that the marketing team has that information. So as long as it's together and accessible, we can do a lot with a pretty little information. We don't have to ask the customers a ton, but we obviously are big fans of preference centers. Any time where the customer wants to give us information, we'll gladly take it.
I think simplification lies in not becoming paralyzed with all that data. Say it's flexible and now it's unified, and now the challenge is how to optimize it. And when you're talking about large amounts of data, there's this tendency to focus on, okay, how do I get it and where do I store it? But the advice I'd offer is to focus on making it as useful as possible. And you do that by having a really clear idea of how data needs to serve the next best decision. A really good way of doing that is implementing and considering machine learning models that can quickly identify your trends, good and bad, predict behavior, and analyze some of those impacts and outcomes that are ultimately going to be key to being able to leverage the data, and leveraging it in real time and across multiple channels.
Well, there's a few things that you can do. When you say optimize, there's really a couple of ways that I can think about it, right? So, and it's actually complementary to each other. First of all, is you have to really think about what data makes sense to collect and what data is really not that relevant, right? And I think it's and then they also have to think about what data is really no longer acceptable to collect, from all the GDPR and the CCPA and all the different types of regulations that are out there now. And now there's an assault on cookies and, things like that used to be a lot more pervasive, and now it's like, different. So optimization to me is about essentially getting data payloads to make sense from a size perspective and from a content perspective and from a regulatory perspective. So that is really, the key things that need to be considered in any data collection strategy. And then the other thing is to maybe sort of focus on real-time or near real-time data collection methods and upgrade your technologies that, so that you don't have these batch files flying around that take days and days to get into your systems, right? So I think those are from a technological standpoint purely, what a strategy would look like would be to move the enterprise, and a lot of digital transformation efforts actually focus on exactly those types of technology, and they move it into the cloud, they want to scale it up, so it works faster and so on. So anyway, so that's kind of the when you say the optimization process, I think, as I said, it's the relevant data, it's the size of the payload, and it's getting it to move faster, basically, across the different channels.